it is the 1 year anniversary of this channel. That's crazy to say. In all honesty, I'm lost for words. But enjoy today's episode. Week 6 predictions on tap today. Let me know down in the comments what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and of course, let me know why. But also stay to the very, very end. I want to talk to you guys. But until then, enjoy the video. All right, week 6. We're back here with our weekly predictions each and every Thursday. Of course, I have some news for you guys later on about the future of these Thursdays and how they'll be a little bit different going forward. But we're joined by a longtime guest. And of course, this is a very special episode, not only because we have a special guest, but it is the 1 year anniversary of this channel. Bakari, the longtime co-host of this channel, the really only co-host on this channel. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling great. I'm glad to be back on the pod. As usual, I will never turn down the opportunity when I have the chance. I just want to let everybody know that, my voice is a little stuffy. My nose decided it wanted to stay in the summer while my body is transitioning to the fall. So, just bear with me if I sound a little under the weather, but, I'm ready. I'm excited to get to it.
And pushing through for the podcast. And of course, we always thank you for coming out to the show. But without further ado, we're just going to hop into it as, of course, last week was the weirdest week of the year, in my opinion. A lot of upsets, a lot of games didn't go the way I thought they would. We finished with a 7-7 record. Of course, the worst record that we've had all season, but still a 69% rate on the entire season for correct rate. So I at least know a little bit of what I'm talking about, and we need to get back on the right track. Some teams that are on bye this week, the Packers, they are 2-3, and of course they've lost 2 straight games. There's a lot of questions there with Jordan Love. And on the flip side, the Pittsburgh Steelers, after a game-winning touchdown against a division foe, the Baltimore Ravens, they're 3-2. They sit on top of the AFC North. In your opinion here, I know the Steelers are they're coming off of a win. The Packers, 2 losses. Regardless, who do you think needs this bye week more out of these 2 teams?
I'd say the Packers. Like you mentioned, they are coming off those 2 straight losses. They get a chance to have a bye week, get an extra week of preparation, and it gives Jordan Love a little bit of time to not get too down on himself maybe just kind of study and watch the film from those 2 losses, from these back-to-back losses they face, and really come out of the bye week swinging again, like we saw him start off the season versus the Bears. Not to say that the Steelers don't need it. The Steelers obviously have some questions of themselves, but getting that win over the Ravens is huge because, like you mentioned, they now are atop of the AFC North. So I think the Packers are really going to have a good opportunity here to kind of see where they want the rest of the season to go.
Absolutely. I mean, biggest thing is, I think, to me, they get healthy. But again, like you mentioned, it's a good reset for the quarterback so he can regain confidence in himself going forward. As I'm still on the Jordan Love bandwagon. I still believe in him going forward, but there's some film on him now. So teams have, they know what he likes, what he dislikes, and it's bothering him the last 2 weeks. So hopefully he can get back on the right track, and a bye week is the perfect place to do that. But kicking off here with a Thursday night game, it's the 1-4 Denver Broncos and the 4-1 Kansas City Chiefs, of course, on a 4-game win streak, excuse me, as they lost week 1, but won every game since then. The Kansas City Chiefs and Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is 11-0 in his career against the Broncos. They're home at Arrowhead. Is there any chance the Broncos come into this game and shock the world under Sean Payton?
If this was just a game of just straight offense, I'd say maybe you have a chance there. But because we know that the Broncos defense has given up 70 points in a single game this season, and not to mention, they did have a good comeback versus the Bears, but not to mention their defense hasn't been good at all this year. And we're facing the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. You're going to need some type of defense. So I don't see an outcome where the Broncos win. I do have the Chiefs in this one, but I guess it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
You're right. Technically anything is possible, and the Broncos could definitely pull off an upset, but Pat Mahomes is 11-0 in his career, and that's with the stars, without the stars. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, it's too good of a pairing to face a team that's really just kind of they haven't figured everything out yet. There with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. Of course, they have some injuries of their own there in Javonte Williams and Jerry Jeudy, of course. I will say maybe the Broncos keep it close in the first half just because that's kind of how Thursday nights go. They're relatively close. But second half, no doubt in my mind that the Chiefs will pull away in this one. and of course go to 5-1 as they continue to be the Chiefs. In all honesty, moving over to the London game, we have the Baltimore Ravens, who lost a heartbreaking game last week against the Steelers, which they had ample amount of opportunities to win, but they fell apart at the end there. And they're going to Tennessee, technically. Of course, it's in London, to take on the Titans, and the Titans are 2-3. They need to win badly, the Titans, and the Baltimore Ravens, they need to get back on track. But no doubt in my mind, I think both these teams are 0-1 in London games. I'm still going to go with the Ravens. The Ravens with Lamar Jackson, with Mark Andrews on offense. Of course, Zay Flowers. I would like to see this team come out and, have a chip on their shoulder. You let a game get away from you last week. You should come out this week and make a statement. And I think they do that in London. And I think they probably win by 2 or 3 scores against the Tennessee Titans. As the Titans, they're okay. They're an okay team, but they still have a lot of questions in their own right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think in my mind it's going to be a closer game than I think 2 or 3 scores, maybe 1 score, or just maybe like a field goal or something. Only because this is the second that the Ravens' 2 losses are from last second, or I guess end of close games. They melt down or whatever the case is. They lose to the Colts and Gardner Minshew, and then they lose last week. Not to mention that, obviously the receivers had problems with, I think, 7 or 8 drops that they had.
That was the biggest
thing. Amounted to like 3 touchdowns. And, I think it was like 140 yards on top of that. Like, there's only so much Lamar can do if he's getting the ball to you and it hits you in the hands. You have to, everybody has to step up and make plays, because you can't blame that on one player. But like you said, I expect them to come out with a chip on their shoulder. I think people will have bounce back games. But the Titans at the Tennessee at their best, they're also a pretty decent team. Like you said, they're a pretty okay team. We saw what they did to Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago. I do think that the Ravens are better than Cincinnati. So I think that, we won't see that, but I feel like this will be a good, tough game from both teams, but I do have the Ravens winning.
Yeah, me as well. Moving over to the Sunday night games, where we do, of course, I had to start with this one, and of course, I have these emojis on the right side of the screen for the right teams. Super Bowl logo. If you're on a 5-game win streak, you're on the right path to a Super Bowl, and the Niners are the first team to get that emoji. Of course, we'll see it one time later on. But for this matchup specifically, it is the 49ers and the Cleveland Browns. The 49ers, they're 5-0. They are, in my opinion, the number 1 team in football. They have done nothing wrong this far into the season. They have shown no flaws, maybe aside from health to Brandon Ayuk. And the Browns, on the other hand, they've shown a lot of flaws, and it all kind of starts with their quarterback. The guy they paid $230 million to, he hasn't been throwing all week, and he's had his, what is it, a rotator cuff? I don't even know what it is. Deshaun Watson hasn't been throwing all week at practice. He might not play in this matchup. And the Niners, I saw an interesting stat earlier. They pressured the other opposing team's quarterbacks at the 7th highest rate. Deshaun Watson has the 3rd lowest completion percentage against pressure in the NFL. There's nothing in this matchup that lines up to say that the Browns have a chance, and that's coming from a Browns fan. In your opinion, who do you have winning this game? I have the Niners by probably 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah, I have the Niners by maybe 3 or 4 scores. We saw what the last time the Browns played. Obviously, we had a rookie out there playing in DTR, and we saw the type of game that was. Obviously we saw the news that, PJ Walker is now the backup, but like you mentioned, Deshaun Watson hasn't practiced all week. Myles Garrett hasn't practiced. I think Joel Bitonio hasn't practiced. Those are 3 huge heavy hitters for, Deshaun and Joel on the offensive line, and then Myles Garrett on the defensive side. I think that, this is going to be an ugly game, or it has the potential to, especially if we don't have our starting quarterback playing. But, it's really a lose-lose, because, either we have our backup quarterback and PJ Walker, who, he's a serviceable backup, or we have an injured Deshaun Watson playing through a shoulder injury on his throwing arm. So it's really a lose-lose, because either way, you're going to have to kind of limit the playbook for the Browns' perspective. While this San Francisco team, like you mentioned, is just steamrolling right now. So this is, I am with you.
Yeah, with or without Watson at full strength, I don't even know if the Browns have a chance in this game. And that's saying a lot, because the Browns have maybe the best defense in football, but their quarterback's not healthy. And just with how Watson has looked since we've had him, I don't even know if at full health we have a chance in this one. But, of course, both of us, the Niners, on the road in that matchup. And moving over to the Saints at 3-2, they go to Houston to take on the Texans, the Saints. I mean, they've been really unpredictable the last 2 weeks, as They won 34-0 last week against New England, and the week before that they lost. And then you play Houston, right? Houston's one of the most fun, young, and energetic teams, high powered. I mean, CJ Stroud is setting record after record this season. And honestly, I think this matchup comes down to the quarterbacks. No shocker here. I mean, Derek Carr is coming back from an injury. He hasn't really looked the greatest in his time in New Orleans yet. On the other hand, like I mentioned, CJ Stroud is setting record after record. Who do you have in this matchup? As I'm kind of stuck at the moment, the Saints or the Texans?
I'm actually going to take the Texans here because, I like the way they played last week. Obviously, the defense let them down at the end of that game versus the Falcons. But like you mentioned, I think Tank Dell is hurt anyway, but I know CJ Stroud, he's just that type of quarterback who, I mean, already he's coming to the league. He makes great decisions. He has great patience. He can deliver the ball in tight spaces. CJ Stroud, he is the real deal, ladies and gentlemen. And more importantly, he has this whole team captivated in him. He has the whole city behind him. He has everybody behind him. And I think that's, that says a lot for a rookie quarterback who comes in and plays as good as him. Obviously the Saints are, like you said, they are unpredictable these last 2 weeks, but on paper, they're also still pretty solid. But I think I want to go with the Texans. Like I said, maybe this time, instead of the defense letting them down at the end of the game, their defense can get a stop and secure the win. So
I would love to see the Texans win here, but they burned me last week there late in the game against the Atlanta Falcons. And honestly, I mean, the Saints, they're just a veteran team. Derek Carr should only look better. And I do think this week, CJ Stroud will throw his first ever career interception. I'm not going to say that's going to be the reason they lose this game, but I'll actually differ from you here. I will take New Orleans on the road, as it's not a good sign when you're taking the road team more times than one. But I'm going to take the road veteran team here in New Orleans to I guess get a win over the Houston Texans. But the Texans, I mean, one of the most fun teams to watch here in the NFL. The next matchup here, and we don't have to spend much time about it. Of course, the Panthers are the first team with the tank there, as they don't even have their first round pick, but I guess they're tanking for a high second round pick.
Yeah,
maybe that's what they're doing. As Bryce Young, he's been battling injuries. We know it was going to take time for a rookie to he's got to get his feet wet, is a good way to put it. And rookie quarterbacks, it may be the hardest position to play. Rookie quarterback and cornerbacks. For a rookie, that might be the two hardest positions to play at the National Football level. And Bryce Young, there's definitely an adjustment period there. It's not often you see a guy that's that young and has the success of a guy like CJ Stroud. Bryce Young here, he should be good to play in this game as he's been battling his own injuries. But that's pretty much all I can say about this matchup. They're playing Miami. I think that's a top 5 team in the NFL. And I don't know if they'll get Jalen Ramsey back this week, but if not, pretty soon. And Jalen Ramsey, of course, is a top 5 corner in the NFL. Give me Miami here by 100.
Yeah, I'm going to go Miami by 200. Obviously, you just mentioned everything. Bryce Young, he's not only is he battling through injuries, he's trying to transition from being at a powerhouse in college to, going to the worst team in the NFL right now. If you're just going to go by record, obviously he hasn't had the same, success as a CJ Stroud or even like an Anthony Richardson, even though, he's on IR, but we can get to that later. But, he's still figuring it out. And, this team is still trying to figure everything out. And unfortunately for them, they did trade that pick to the Bears. So, they won't even be able to get the benefits of the tank. But right. Miami by 3,000.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that it's interesting. I mean, it sucks that Devon Achane, one of the most exciting rookies in the NFL, he went down with injury. And they said he might not be back to like week 10 or 11. So Devon Achane, hopefully speedy recovery to him. And Miami, I mean, they still get Jeff Wilson back in a couple weeks. So this offense is going to look even better here when eventually they're going to have all 3 of them if Mostert can stay healthy. But again, both of us are taking Miami here. Seattle on the road, they've won 3 straight. They go to Cincinnati, and they're playing a Cincinnati Bengals team that they look back. Cincinnati is back, at least in my opinion. And in the preseason, of course, I predicted this team to win the Super Bowl. And if that is the case, they're going to have to get it going like they did last year and win 8 out of 10 games or so, starting from this point for the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know. Do you want to pick first here, or do you want me to go ahead?
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
In all honesty here, I'll be honest with you. I don't even know if this is an upset. I think Cincy is technically favored at home here, but since they got back on track and since Joe Burrow can actually move again, he looks like his old self. And in my opinion, when Joe Burrow's at his best, he's the second best player in football. I mean, really, we can say he's the number one player in football because Patrick Mahomes isn't human. Okay, that's an alien. So really, when we talk about humans, Joe Burrow might be the best player in football. And with that being said, I'm going to take Cincinnati at home here to continue this hot, to continue to get hot is a good way to put it. As Jamar Chase, he's going to have his hands full there with Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon, but with T. Higgins maybe coming back, I just think Joe Mixon needs that big game yet. We haven't seen that Joe Mixon game. And of course, Joe Burrow, if he's playing like the level he should be, they have a chance against anybody. So I'm going to take Cincy at home here to knock off a hot Seahawks team.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to differ from you. I know it sounds crazy taking Seattle away, or as an away team, especially against Cincinnati, given how good Cincinnati did look last week. But I mean, you can't take anything away from what you can't take anything away from what Cincinnati did last week. But it was the Cardinals who, obviously are not going to win a Super Bowl this year. And like I said, I'm not taking anything away from that. Joe Burrow did look good again. Obviously he found Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is 7-11. He's always open. So you can't take anything away from that duo, but I think the Seahawks team has what it takes to go into Cincinnati and get a win, especially coming off that big win versus the Giants, I believe. And they, Devon Witherspoon, obviously he's going against the Giants O-line, so it's not going to be a whole lot of resistance. But he had a really good game. Tariq Woolen is going to, I believe he's going to have a really good game. You're also going to get Jamal Adams back, hopefully for a full game. I believe in this Seahawks team to march into Cincinnati and get a W because only for the simple fact that I haven't seen Cincinnati do this for 2 games in a row. You know what I mean? I haven't seen Joe Burrow do this 2 games in a row this season. I know it sounds insane because, it's Joe Burrow. He's the highest player in football for a reason. It's Jamar Chase. They're one of the best duos in the league for a reason. But in order for me to be back on that train for Cincinnati, I need to see them do it consistently again. Just 2 games in a row. That's all I need to see from them before
do it against a team that actually wants to win football games. As I guess your point here,
right?
And just to clarify any confusion there, I think you misspoke. But Devon Witherspoon, of course, was the corner, and he had a pick 6 there last week or 2 weeks ago because Seattle's coming off of a bye. But I also failed to mention that Seattle's getting both of their starting offensive tackles back in this game. In Cincinnati, of course, they have a good pass rush, but it always helps when you get extra help for Geno Smith. Definitely going to be maybe the game of the week, but we're going to differ here. The second game, we're going to differ in Cincinnati. You're taking Seattle here, and again, might be one of the best games of the week. Next up, we're going to have the Washington Commanders on the road here. They, of course, lost 3 in a row when they were 2-0. They looked fun, and they looked young, and I had them as a top 10 team in the NFL, of course, number 10. But then I dropped them out the list quickly because after that loss to Buffalo, they've really been on a downward spiral. They go into Atlanta. Atlanta is 3-0 at home this season. And, Desmond Ridder, I don't want to say his breakout game, but he definitely had the best game of his career last week. And this week he's at home. Bijan Robinson's looked amazing week after week, and they should be able to control the run game because even though Washington has maybe the best defensive line in football talent-wise, the Bears were able to run all over them last week. And it's really just it doesn't make any sense. I'll put it that way. It doesn't make any sense why Washington has all this talent defensively, but they couldn't stop a team that, was 0-4 or whatever at that point last week against the Bears. I will take Atlanta here. I will take Atlanta, and I will take them with a big Bijan game. Maybe this is the big Bijan game we get this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I was trying to look for scenarios in my head where I could take the Commanders, which I'm not. I think this will be a good game between these 2 teams. I think we will see maybe a bounce back week from Sam Howell, but I just believe in the Falcons' weapons a little bit more, which is crazy because obviously you have Scary Terry in Washington. But if the Falcon,
thank you for mentioning that, by the way. But go ahead.
Yeah, and the thing about the Falcons is you get frustrated. I think fans get frustrated because of their lack of success and QB success. Obviously, Desmond Ridder, like you said, just maybe had one of his best games, but the lack of QB success when they have the weapons. They have Bijan, they have Drake London, they have Kyle Pitts, and it's like we're underutilizing 2 of the 3. And I think that when you can get your offense clicking and get the ball to your weapons consistently, it'll make Desmond Ritter's job a lot easier, because then he can shed some of that blame, I guess, or some of that offensive focus onto his offensive playmakers. And I think once we see that, the Falcons can reach another tier. But for right now, they're kind of just in this, middle land. Like, what are we going to get from them every single week? Yeah. And, I do agree with you. I will take the Falcons here, but, we're still waiting to see the offense unlocked for this Falcons team.
See that it's full potential.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. I do want to mention this. So tomorrow I have a fantasy football video uploading. If you guys are still listening, of course, tomorrow fantasy football. And I was doing some research about Terry McLaurin. When these two teams met last year, I guess per Next Gen Stats, AJ Terrell on 19 routes held Terry McLaurin to 1 catch for 3 yards. So AJ Terrell had Scary Terry in the lockup. Okay, he had him in Alcatraz. And I think, if Washington can have their biggest playmaker offensively taken out of the game, it's only going to put more pressure on Sam Howell. And Sam Howell has been sacked 30 times this year, which is a league high. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on the young man. And I agree with you here again. I will take Atlanta at home here to continue their hot streak. Next up, though, we have the Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars. It is the battle of the AFC South. The Colts here, as they had their star quarterback, go Gators, but Anthony Richardson went down with a shoulder injury last week. He's going to be out for some time, at least 4 to 6 weeks, I believe. And that sets up a Gardner Minshew revenge game, I guess is a way to put it. As, of course, Gardner Minshew he came onto the scene in Jacksonville, got a little bit of opportunity, and he made the most of it, but he was eventually replaced by Trevor Lawrence, Mr. Sunshine. So I guess a revenge game here. And simply put, the Colts here, Gardner Minshew's been efficient. Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor give them, a lot of star power offensively. And Josh Downs is also coming out to the scene. But who do you have in this matchup as Jacksonville? As they just got a big win against Buffalo, but can they get can they continue this momentum at their actual home place, not just their secondary place there in London?
Yeah, and here we go. I'm going to say it's going to sound a little crazy, but I am going to take the Colts here. I want to believe in the Colts because last time we saw Gardner Minshew play this season, he was able to lead his team to an overtime win against the Baltimore Ravens, which is not an easy feat. Yes, it was at home for them, and yeah, some things had to go their way, but still, regardless, you're beating Baltimore is never easy, especially when you have Lamar Jackson on the other side. And like you said, Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor is going to get more reps this season. This game. Gardner Minshew is good at finding his guys. Like you mentioned, Josh Downs. I saw somebody said that Josh Downs fantasy stock is going to the moon now that
it is. That's fancy.
Quarterback. But I believe in this Colts team. I think they'll get a shocking win versus like you mentioned, this Jaguars team that just got a really big win against Buffalo. So I'm going to take Indianapolis here.
That would change my opinion entirely on Jacksonville. As on Tuesday I said that Jacksonville, I've been waiting for them to get that big win because I had them as the number 6 team coming into the year as a dark horse, like Super Bowl winner. And if they take that win against Buffalo and then they lose this game against a backup quarterback and they fall back down to earth, it might actually change my, I guess, outlook on them for the remainder of the season. But you're taking the Colts. I'm taking Jacksonville. I think this is already more games that we differed on than me and Amir last week. But game of the week here. Game of the week. NFC North matchup. The Vikings, without Justin Jefferson, are going to Chicago to take on maybe a new revamped offense in the Chicago Bears. They're 1-4, got their first win on the season last week. The Vikings are trying to avoid a 3-game losing streak here. But the biggest story of this game is that Justin Jefferson went out with an injury last week. He's going to be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring. Who do you have in this NFC North matchup as everybody's eyes? And I mean everybody's are going to be glued to the TV screen for this one.
I'm going to take Chicago here because of how good they looked the last time they were out in the field. And for the simple fact that when you have a dynamic playmaker like Justin Jefferson out on IR, we'll have to see
Jordan Addison.
What was that? Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. We'll have to see if Jordan Addison can step up in behalf of what Justin Jefferson brings, which I have no doubt in my mind that he has the talent and the skill set to make plays and be, and step up. But I'm going to take Chicago because they did look so good last time they were out on the field. And, maybe who knows? Maybe they got that first win and saw how the offense was rolling. Maybe they can, roll that into another game and roll that to another game. Obviously, if you really want to count it, Chicago, could argue it should be 2-3 right now. Obviously, they let that game when they played Denver get away from them. But they got it right last time they were out in the field, and I think they can continue that this game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you here. I'm going to take Chicago. As Minnesota, they have a lot to figure out. I think this game can sneakily be the highest scoring matchup of the week, as of course Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw the ball to somebody, and that's going to leave it to the Madison, Hockenson, and Addison trio to, I guess, carry this team going forward. Maybe we get a KJ Osborne game, but I do think Chicago can build off of last week, or at least you would hope so, for the future of Justin Fields. And I will agree with you here. I think in the battle of the most watched game this week, I will take the Chicago Bears. But moving over to the 4 o'clock games, we're going to kick it off here with, I guess, mentor versus mentee, as we have the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick going to Las Vegas to take on the 2-3 Josh McDaniels-led Raiders team. And the Raiders got a big win last week on Monday night against the Green Bay Packers. The New England Patriots, they're 1-4. They need a big win, as Mac Jones for the second week in a row was, of course, replaced late in the game by Bailey Zapp. Mac Jones and this Patriots team lost 34-0 last week, the worst loss in Belichick's career as a head coach. Is there any chance they bounce back with a win here in this one?
No, I don't see it. You're going to have to send Mac Jones back out there on the field again this week, and I just think that this New England team on offense, they're not as explosive as they need to be. The Raiders have Devontae Adams, they have Hunter Renfrow. Jimmy G isn't the greatest, but he's back there at quarterback. They have Josh Jacobs. Like, this Raiders team has a lot of pieces on offense that the Patriots don't even have one of, really. Let's give the ball to Zeke. We'll see where that gets them, but I believe that the Raiders win this game this week. Maybe we'll see for the third straight week Mac Jones get benched. Who knows? But I'm taking the Raiders this week.
Yeah, let's not forget last year when these two teams met up, Jacoby Myers, the receiver for Las Vegas now, he was on the Patriots, and he threw that lateral. I don't know if you remember it, but he threw that lateral that eventually ended up in Chandler Jones's hands, and the Raiders won on this last-second lateral play. Absolutely insane ending to that game, but I'm actually going to differ from you. I'm just joking. I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders here at home. I think Josh McDaniels finally gets his first win against his mentor there in Bill Belichick. But I will say that if Mac Jones can't get it done this week, if he can't win, I think the Patriots just have to tank. They have to give the keys to Bailey Zapp, see what they have, and go after Caleb Williams or Drake May, maybe even a Michael Penix. But of course, the visual there, I don't think makes sense there for a Bill Belichick-led team, if you know what I'm saying. Moving over to the next 4 o'clock matchup, we have the Detroit Lions, a top 4 team in football for me, maybe a top 3 team, depending on who you ask. They are on a 3-game win streak. They are 4-1 on the year, and they go to Tampa. Tampa Bay's 3-1. They're coming off of a bye week. And Baker Mayfield, this revenge tour, I guess, is in full, in full effect. But this is 2 division leaders going head-to-head in a matchup, and no doubt in my mind, I'm going to go with Detroit here. Detroit, they have a quarterback playing at an MVP level. Jared Goff has had a career year for sure. They have a running back duo that's dynamic. It's a Thunder and Lightning pairing, and their Lightning hasn't even been effective this year in Jahmyr Gibbs. Not to mention they've maybe the best offensive line. They have a good receiving core and a top 5 defensive unit in the league with, of course, a decoy runner, a front runner there in Aiden Hutchinson. Who do you have in this matchup? As my answer is pretty clear. I'm going with Detroit on the road.
Yeah, I want to go with Detroit here as well. I like the way Detroit has been played ever since the first game of the year for them versus the Chiefs. Detroit has really proven that they've built off of what they were able to find in the second half of last year and put it into effect this year. Not to take anything away from Tampa Bay, because I think Baker is, he's wheeling and dealing again. We're seeing shades of what Baker won so many Browns fans over with his style of play, and the Bucs all around are a pretty solid team. Obviously. But I'm going to go with Detroit with you. I agree. Jamar Gibbs hasn't been able to get on track yet this season. We haven't seen a huge explosive game out of him, but who knows? We're probably due for one coming up in these next few weeks. It's been a David Montgomery show, but I'm sure we'll get a I'm trying to think of the most random running back duo game that I can think of. I think it was Lance Dunbar, DeMarco Murray, in one of those Thanksgiving games. We're going to see that this one of these weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, I know, has been battling with an injury, but I mean, even when he's healthy, the Lions aren't utilizing him to his fullest potential. At least that's what us fans think. But of course, that's why we don't get paid millions of dollars. The Bucs, though, last note here, I will say that they're 3-1 in the first month of the year. They look like a top 10 team. In fact, I have them at number 10. But I think we're really going to find out who this team is and how, I guess, effective this Baker Mayfield revenge tour will be, because their next month and a half of football is a lot more difficult than their first month. So just to clarify, I'm taking Detroit here, and you are as well. And I guess the final note here that we both had was we're going to find out who Tampa Bay is here pretty soon. But moving over to the NFC West, we have the Arizona Cardinals, led by Josh Dobbs, of course, MVP quarterback. They're going to the Rams, and they're playing a Rams team that they're 2-3. They're under 500, but they've lost a lot of tough games. Last week, they had a chance to win that Eagles game. Of course, that's what the Eagles have done all year to give other teams hope, but the Rams have looked really, really solid this year. And who do you have in this matchup as Cooper Kupp's back and the Rams, I guess, maybe back?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Rams here. Surprise, surprise. Obviously we know the situation that the Cardinals are in. Josh Dobbs is playing good given his opportunity, but the Cardinals aren't expecting Josh Dobbs to be behind quarterback to start the season off for them next year, or maybe they are. Who knows? We're just sitting at home on our couch. But like you mentioned, the Rams have lost some close games this year, and I think when they got that Week 1 surprise upset win versus the Seahawks, it kind of put everybody like, oh wait. We weren't expecting the Rams to do this, especially coming off the season. But here we are, going into this Sunday. I believe in the Rams. Like you said, they fell, I think, 17-14 to the Eagles. Had a chance to win that game, but didn't. And that's kind of been the moral of their losses so far. They have a chance, or they're right there, but I believe they get back to 500 this week.
Yeah, I mean, not much analysis I have to say for here. One team is trying to win games, one team isn't. Despite what that one in the win column says for the Arizona Cardinals, James Conner is also out with injury, so it's the Emari Demercado game for the Arizona Cardinals, which will be interesting. But we're both going with the Rams here. The final 4:00 game that I want to talk about today is the Philadelphia Eagles at 5-0. They go to New York to take on the Jets. The biggest story here for me is the cornerback and the wide receiver matchup. Is for the Jets side of things, we're going to have Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed facing A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So maybe one of the best cornerback duos versus probably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. I think that's going to be the thing to look out for in this game, but no doubt about it. I think if the Eagles did 100 QB sneaks in this game, they would be able to get first downs, and they'd be able to win this game. So give me the Eagles on the road to roll to 6-0.
Yeah, obviously for me, I'm thinking about the elite quarterback matchup we have in Jalen Hurts and oh wait, never mind, I forgot. I'm going to take the Eagles this week.
It's still an elite quarterback matchup. You have Zach Wilson. I mean, did you see how he looked against the Broncos? I mean, that's the number 2 pick.
He outplayed Patrick Mahomes a couple of weeks ago. Nobody has ever done that in Patrick Mahomes' career except that one man named Zach Wilson.
He's the future of the franchise.
Because I find myself wanting to root for Zach Wilson every week because of the growth and maturity he showed. Personality-wise from a year ago, maybe not on the field, but you see some glimpses here and there. He's doing about the best he can do, but obviously I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles this week. They're 5-0 for a reason. They've had some close games. Maybe it hasn't always been the blowout wins, but it is an elite team all the way around. I just don't see a world where the Jets win this game.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are 5-0, and they haven't been clicking on all cylinders. That tells you the type of caliber of team they are.
Right.
They should still be the NFC favorites. But moving over here to the Sunday night matchup, not much analysis here. The Giants at 1-4, they might get Saquon back for this game. He's slated to come back, I guess is the way to put it. But they go to Buffalo. Buffalo's 3-2. They lost a big game last week to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they're looking to get back on track. I still think Buffalo's a top 5 level team in the NFL, and no doubt in my mind, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills as Von Miller should get after the Giants I guess get after Daniel Jones a lot here in this game.
Over or under 10 sacks on Daniel Jones today. Or
For Von Miller or for the team?
For the team.
Oh, okay. Definitely over, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here. Like you mentioned, there's really nothing else that needs to be said. Even if Saquon comes back, that might be 3 extra points on the board. And, they might lose instead of, 42-0, they might lose 42-3. So I'm taking the Bills there.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants might be the worst team in football. And, the Bills, I guess last time we thought no doubt they win this game. They lost to Zach Wilson on Monday night. So hopefully the Bills don't mess around with their food here and take care of business. Finally here, Monday Night Football, maybe the game of the week, as we have the Dallas Cowboys at 3-2. They're coming off of a loss. They're looking to get back on track. And then the Chargers, they're well rested. They are coming off a bye week after winning 2 straight games. This is probably no doubt one of the best games of the week, as you have the Cowboys with maybe the best defense versus the Chargers with maybe the most explosive offense aside from the Dolphins. Who do you have in this matchup as, and I think no doubt probably game of the week?
Yeah, this is actually a tough, probably the toughest one we've done so far because of the, what we last saw from the Cowboys was a 42-10 loss. And that's after, that's with San Fran pulling all their starters pretty much by the fourth quarter. And we haven't seen the Chargers play in a week, but we saw 2 early losses at the beginning of the year come from their defense letting them down. I think I'm still going to end up taking the Cowboys here, only because we've seen the Cowboys in previous, seasons, previous times. If they get smacked during the regular season, if it stays like that, they usually always come back and deliver and show everybody once again why they're still, one of the most talented teams in the league. Unfortunately, I don't see the Chargers winning this. I see the Cowboys having a kind of prove it type of game.
Yeah, I think it's a field goal game no matter what, if I guess is a way to put it. But I will agree with you here. I will take the Cowboys to get back on track, as there might be some rust there for the Chargers. But regardless, both of these teams have struggled to win big-time games and primetime games. I think the Cowboys, they might, they come into this game with a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder, saying that they just lost in the fashion they did. And Michael Parsons also made some promises there on his Twitch stream. So I will take the Cowboys here to get back on track to, I guess, improve to 4-0 or 4-2, excuse me. But ultimately, that is going to do it for today's episode. Is there any last thoughts here? It's the 1-year anniversary for this channel. And again, my thanks to you is I started this out of the blue. And the first person I ever thought to ask to be a co-host was, of course, yourself. Any thoughts about, I guess, 1 year of this channel?
Yeah, it's insane to see the amount of growth in just 1 year. I'm sure I don't know what regular channel growth is, but I'm you're surpassing that by far. I know you are. It's insane to think that it's been 1 year, because I remember when you were telling me like, hey, they're giving me some studio time for I think when we started a podcast. Yeah, and I was like, wow. And then a few months later, here I am. You asked me to be on it, and I was like, yeah, sure thing. And then I'm the co-host for a while, and due to some circumstances, I am I come on when I can. I'm a guest appearance like those sitcoms, but it's insane to see the amount of growth. Everybody who knows you knows the amount of dedication and time you put into this. It is really truly another full-time job for you. So it's amazing to see that 100 episodes later. Here, 1 year later, here we are, and it's great to see.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. Of course, you're too nice, but that is, again, going to do it for today's episode. Picard, thank you for coming out. It's always a pleasure. All right, before we get out of here, I just want to talk to you guys. Most importantly, thank you for 1 year on the channel. Whether if you've just watched one video or if you watched all of them, if you liked, disliked, commented, subscribed, thank you for all of your contributions to the channels. It's all culminated to the point that we are at current day. So thank you. 575 plus subs later. Couldn't be more grateful. But on a side note, I wanted to talk to you guys about the journey of this podcast and the sacrifices I've had to make to get to the point that we're at today. As, of course, Bakari kind of mentioned it there at the end of the episode. A year ago today, I was bored out of my mind. I was playing 2K and I was going to class. And, of course, I was doing great at both of those things. But I was sitting there and something was missing, in my opinion. I felt like something was missing, and I wanted to do something special, because ultimately that's why you go to college, is to do something special. And ultimately I made my decision. I wanted to start a podcast. So instantly I started reaching out to all over campus. Where can I get studio time? I eventually found it, and I started pursuing this podcast. And every step of the way, from the logo to structuring these videos to maybe even getting you guys involved in the videos, each and every step of the way was a learning process, and I pursued it to my fullest potential, at least at the time. Of course, things have gotten better to that point. But every single Tuesday, I was recording 2 podcasts for Tuesday and Thursday, and after a month of doing that, I realized this is the perfect opportunity where I can chase my dream. I fell in love with doing this podcast, in all honesty. There's just something different about talking to you guys than even though there's not always a person with me. There's something different about getting my opinion out there now, aside from waiting decades and decades or writing for newspapers and blogs for decades and decades to finally get an opportunity. I want to chase it. And ultimately, I realized I love this. I ended up dropping out of college to chase this to chase this dream. And sure, close friends, relatives, even my parents, everybody's going to question you when you make a decision like that. Why drop out of college? You're a dean list student each and every semester, and you're chasing something that just got off the ground. Why would you do that? Well, it always comes down to it. Everybody always talks about this leap of faith you need to take to chase your dream and to get to that next level. Well, I took that leap of faith, and that was going into the unknown, the uncertain, as I was leaving a college where, again, I was a dean's list student, to chase a podcast which had 50 subs at the time. And I think from that point to now, we have done amazing as we've gained 500 plus subs since that point. So was the risk worth it? Yeah, you know what? F it. F it. F the people that doubt you. That's my honest answer to you guys. If you're chasing a dream in your own right, in your own lives, and everybody's on their own path, is the point I'm getting at. So if nobody wants to agree with you, if they don't like the path you're going down, and they don't want you to do that, if that's your dream, F them or F it. Chase your dreams to the fullest, to your fullest potential. That is the moral of the story that I'm getting at. Because nobody at the end of the day is going to believe in you or what you're building until you've already done it. Nobody's going to believe in what you're doing until you already have sustainable success. So that's the sad reality of it. No one's going to believe in you until you've already done it, right? But that's why you just got to do it. And it really turns into a point where not only do you have to prove those people wrong, but you have to prove yourself right. And that's also what I told myself was I had to prove myself right. I have to prove to myself that I am who I think I am. And I have to prove to myself that this podcast can be what I think it can be. And don't get me wrong, we're far from it. We are far from it. We are on step 1 of the process to where I think this podcast can go. I think I could do this full time one day. That is the ultimate goal. And that is what I'm chasing each and every day. So, moral of the story, chase your dreams no matter what anybody else around you is telling you. Because God didn't put that vision and that dream in your soul and your heart and your mind for no reason. So, chase that dream that you want to the fullest potential. That is the point I'm getting at here. But again, thank you guys for 1 year on the channel. 4 videos a week, and we don't plan on stopping. 102 podcasts now, and 50 plus fantasy football videos later. I don't regret a single moment of it. So chase your guys' dreams, and we'll be back tomorrow with some fantasy football start or sit options for week 6. So until then, stay happy, stay healthy. Thank you for 1 year from the bottom of my heart.